Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in for another video. I'm glad to be back. Fishing season is right up around the corner in Wisconsin, and I'm just going to be glad to be out here and making some content for everybody. Ice is still out there, so bear with us. Can't get on the water yet, but this year is going to be the biggest year for me. Of course, doing a lot of content in terms of lures, going to be doing some gear review, going to be doing some fishing. I'm going to obviously do some recording out there too as well. Got some other cool things coming up, but today, since we can't get on the water, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite ways to fish. And in front of me I have a couple different types of jigs, and the reason why I love jigs so much is because it's one of the best lures to have with you, and the reason why is because you can fish this lure all year round. You can fish it in the dead of winter, you can fish it in the spring, the summer, the fall. It's just a really great bait, and you can fish it in all types of water columns. You can fish it shallow, you can fish it deep, and you can fish anywhere between. You can fish it on, grassy areas. You could fish it at, rock piles, sandbars, around docks. So in front of me we have a football head jig, a finesse jig, and a couple of different swim jigs here. We'll talk about the football head first. The reason why it's called a football head is because the head is obviously shaped like a football. And this particular jig is designed to be fished on the bottom. So this is a bottom contact type jig. It's heavy, it's bulky, it's got a big profile, and this is a lure where you're going to make a long cast. You're going to let it sink all the way to the bottom, and you're going to slow roll this thing. You can slow roll it, you can pop it. You can do a combination of both, but this is a lure that's going to be primarily fished in deeper water, and also it's going to be a lure where you're going to fish it solely pretty much on the bottom in deeper water. So this is one example of a football head style jig. The next one is the complete opposite. This right here is a finesse jig. So this is a jig where you're going to really want to fish in tighter applications or conditions where it can be a little tough, where it's a cloudless sky, clear water situation. You're going to want to throw this guy. It's smaller, it doesn't have a very big profile, and this is a very versatile bait for spotted bass, smallmouth, and even largemouth too. But this is a really high pressure situation type jig here, and that's where you're really going to use a finesse jig. Smaller, compact in weight, and also, again, for clear water type situations. My favorite jig, and this is actually how I started to really fall in love with jigs, is are the swim jigs. I have a couple different types here of swim jigs. These are all the same, just in different colors. This is a totally different brand. This is a Dirty Jigs one. But they're all rigged a little differently, this one compared to this. I want to talk about it, and the reason why I love the swim jigs the most is because it's the most versatile. It comes in different shapes, colors, sizes, and they go really well through grass, and they can be fished around docks, they could be fished around rock piles. They don't get snug on very easily. It is a jig that does not get caught very easily, and it is a jig that is not very bulky and not very small and not finessey either. So it's kind of like the happy medium for a jig size. These are 3/8 here. This is just an example of a white one. Here's one of my favorite ones, is a black and blue color. But I fell in love with these because you can really fish this in shallow water. You can fish it deeper. You can fish it around docks. You can fish it on rock piles, sandbars. I mean, it's such a versatile lure, and that's the reason why I love it. And if you want to start jig fishing, start with a swim jig, because it's kind of the jack of all trades, master of none type swim jig. And it's going to get the job done. You can fish it in any application. And so if you don't want to invest in way too many different types of jigs, start with a swim jig, and it's going to, you're going to really fall in love with jigs. This is one that's rigged up like a crawl here. So this is a 3/8 ounce jig, and this is basically a Z-Craw from Zoom. And I love these because they're not very bulky, and they're not very long either. Here in Wisconsin, we're not fishing for trophy, 8 to 10 pounders here. I mean, the biggest they probably get around here is 5 and 6 pounds. So, we really don't throw like huge bulky lures. And so fishing, Wisconsin, you know, these swim jigs work out very well, especially due to the size and the versatility, because Wisconsin, we have so many different types of fisheries. We have clear water situations, we have dark and dingy water situations, so these jigs just work flawlessly in every type of application or situation out there. This is one that's rigged up similar to like a bait fish, and if you can tell, I have basically like high tech on the back of it, and this is going to imitate a bait fish in the water column. So want to talk a little bit about those. In front of me I have two types of trailers. This is basically like a crawl type trailer. Again, this is the Zoom Z-Craw, and I like these because they're not very bulky, they're not very expensive. I think they're like $4 for a pack of, like, I don't know, what they come in, 12 these days. So they're not very expensive, and they last pretty good. Zoom is a great product, great brand. They make really excellent plastics, and you know, they're not very expensive. This is also another Zoom product. This is basically a Fat Albert, I believe is what they call it, but basically it's a grub, and this is a really good trailer for swim jigs because of the action that it creates when it goes through the water column. It just kind of phalangulates, and it kind of kicks and kind of creates some vibration in the water. Not too crazy, but a little subtleness. And so a couple of different type of trailers here. There are a lot of other types of jigs out there, guys. These are not all of them. These are just a couple of them that I have. But if you want to get started and you're not sure where to start, pick up yourself a swim jig, either a 1/4 ounce or 3/8 ounce. Throw a crawl drag, a crawl. Doesn't matter if it's this or Ultra Speed Vibe or whatever kind of a crawl. Just throw a crawl on it and take it fishing. You know, experiment with it. You know, have fun. You're gonna catch some fish. You know, and let the fish tell you what they want. You know, if you have to slow it down, you could definitely do so with a jig. If you need to speed it up because the fish are active, by all means, go ahead and do that. But you know, fishing a jig is awesome, super versatile, and you can fish it all year round. It's definitely something that I have tied on every day or every tournament. I gotta have a jig. You know, you can never fail, and it's because it's so versatile. You know, again, you can fish it in, you know, all types of water columns. You can fish in any kind of situation. So fishing a jig is definitely one of my favorite lures of all time. And if I had to pick one with me and I can only bring one, it's definitely a jig. So guys, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop a comment. If you have any questions about the setup and what that looks like, I can kind of talk to that a little bit too, more in depth later. But this is just a small example of some of the jigs I love to fish. And you know, I'm glad to be back on the channel, glad to be talking about things I love doing, especially fishing and the lures, and I want to share my knowledge with you guys. So don't forget to subscribe, appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.